From the campus of the University of Kentucky, you're listening to Behind the Blue. I'm Kody Kiser with UK Strategic Communications. Across the Commonwealth, the University of Kentucky shows up in countless ways. It's a new student learning a new skill. It's a researcher discovering the next breakthrough. It's a nurse delivering care in a rural clinic. A team of extension agents helping farmers and families build stronger communities. These visible moments are the heart of our land-grant mission. But behind that mission is an enormous amount of day-to-day work. The business of running a modern university and a major academic medical center. Agreements have to be negotiated, partnerships structured, resources aligned with priorities, and the decisions that we make today ripple forward across generations of students and their families. That's why today we are introducing a new recurring series within Behind the Blue called The Business of UK. The Business of UK will appear as a regular feature here on Behind the Blue as a deeper dive into the machinery that keeps a modern university and academic medical center moving forward. With each installment, we will take a single topic, peel back the layers of why it matters, how it works, and what it means for the people we serve. Kind of a guided tour. Leading this series is someone I'm getting ready to introduce, someone who has a front row seat and a leading role in this work every day. The university's Executive Vice President for Finance and Administration and co-EVP for Health Affairs, Dr. Eric Monday. Eric,
Kody,
thanks so much for being with us.
Glad to be here. I look forward to this series and adding on all the great work that you've done for so many years and Behind the Blue, and looking forward to the topics and the conversation and the discussions we're going to have to share more and talk a lot about what we are doing for Kentucky and how we do it, the why, the what. So really looking forward to it.
So I think I kind of set it up there a little bit as far as, kind of laying the groundwork for an introduction. But really, when we get into this, what is this series and why are we doing this?
So we frequently hear these great questions about, so why is the university doing that? Why do we have a 10-year partnership with this company? Or we hear questions about, okay, your budget's $8.7 billion. Kind of break that down. How much of that is healthcare? Or, how are we moving dollars to the academic colleges, and how does that work with these models? And so it gives us some time, rather than maybe just an email, or another website. Let's reach out. Let's tell that story in a little bit more depth. Let's spend a few more minutes on it. I think so. This is in response to some questions, but also I think, Kody, let's not forget the strategic plan of the university. And one of those major components of that strategic plan talks about ensuring greater trust, transparency, and accountability. And the president often says, as the land-grant flagship university, we have a responsibility to ensure that trust. It's a core value of our community. So we're going to increase some accountability and transparency by telling our story, by bringing some guests on and digging a little bit deeper. And so really excited for what's in front of us.
And because these are questions that a lot of people carry around, and it can be anything from, I know that there are probably people listening. There are a lot of people with questions like, why is tuition so much? Or why are we building a new wing of the hospital? Or why are we investing so much money in residence halls or research buildings or whatever? Sometimes these are big questions, sometimes small questions. The questions that people carry reveal the things that we probably need to talk about most to make sure that there's some clarity there, make sure that people understand some of the nuance of that. So listeners will be invited to send their questions and ideas and suggestions for future episodes, correct? We've got an email address for that where people can do that.
We want feedback. We want to hear the future topics. But yeah, we have a very simple email address, just businessofuk@uky.edu. So if people can email us and send us a question they want answered or a topic they'd like addressed, and it could be all those things, Kody, you just talked about, or other things. And we'll cover a number of those, I think, out of the gate. We're going to talk about our relationship with JMI Sports and really understand a little bit more about that, talk about BBNIL and what that is. And we'll have some guests. We'll have the president of JMI Sports, Paul Archie. We'll have the athletics director, Mitch Barnhart, with us. But then we'll move on to talking about the $8.7 billion budget. How does tuition, to your point, get set? Is that the first thing the university does? Is that the last thing? I see these cranes on campus. I think that's great and positive. But, what does that mean? How does that get funded? How do the dollars work? And so look forward to spending a little bit more time to spend a little bit more detail and hear a little audio and video that provides a way for our responsibility to be more transparent, to be more communicative, to look at different mediums of how we're connecting.
Well, when we talk about the kind of the philosophy behind doing this and why clarity around partnerships and programs, why that matters and how it supports trust. Talk a little bit about that, about like what it's not just our responsibility to, manage our resources properly, but it's also part of our responsibility to have some clarity with that and really make sure that we've got the public trust with that as well, right?
Exactly. I do think, and I think we all think, we have a fiduciary obligation to explore all types of relationships with how we think about our students, our employees, how we think about the private sector, the public sector. We are a steward, and how we use those resources and respond is a component of who we are, and that's consistent with that strategic plan. When we think about maybe the last 100 years of American higher education, so much of that relationship has been with the federal government and the state government. What we are starting to see is more interactions and relationships with the private sector. Whether we think about big company names that come to mind, when we think about companies that we're already doing business with, the University of Kentucky, Barnes & Noble, Aramark, we've already talked about JMI Sports, and on Apple and Microsoft and other names. One of the things that we do, and I love this little board, Kody, so I'm going to get this out for you watching on video. Y'all can see this, but we call it just TRIP, and it's our construct of how we think about those relationships. So, what's the term of that agreement? What is the return? What's the investment? And I'll talk about those first three, but the key on all of this is the P. And what I mean by that is that this is where it is the most important when we're talking about what are we trying to achieve? What are those program and principles that we're trying to look at? I'll use an example of when we think about our ability to do what we've done in housing, where we've built over 7,000 now beds across our campus in a very defined period of time. What were the program principles? We wanted to build a lot because we had a lot of need. We wanted high quality construction where these facilities could last not 20 or 30 years, but 50 or 75, 100 or more. We also wanted to constrain the price. We didn't want to build it in such a way. We knew students wanted their own room, that most of our students that we recruit today have never lived with a brother or sister, right? Many of them have their own room, their own bathroom, and maybe their own playroom. And so how do we think about building those spaces? So that's what is the foundation of those relationships. The amount of term, how long that agreement goes, needs to follow that. How much return does the institution receive? Is there a percentage of revenues that comes in so we can fund the res life component? And then the investment, we wanted high quality of investment. We wanted to see steel and bricks and limestone and to look and feel like the university. Well, that means you have to have a larger return. We wanted them to bring. So these things interact, but the takeaway here, and as we talk about some of these business relationships, we're going to spend a lot of time, I think, talking about the program and principles, because that's what drives those relationships and that alignment of interest. So looking forward to think about that as we talk about some of these relationships going forward.
Well, this all sounds excellent. I know that we've got a lot lined up already, and we've got some plans forming for how we're going to break these episodes down in the future. I want to kind of wrap this part of it up by mentioning again, we want to put out a direct call to listeners. If you've got questions, if there are topics and subjects that you want to delve into that you're curious about how it works in the big picture of the university, you can email those questions to businessofuk@uky.edu. Future episodes, we're going to try to incorporate as many listener topics as we can, as we get, and kind of build from there. So coming up, we're going to have Dr. Monday is going to be talking with Paul Archie, who is president of JMI Sports, and we're also going to have a conversation with Paul and Mitch Barnhart, our athletics director here at the university as well. And so we invite you to stay tuned, keep listening, and thanks so much for taking your time to listen to this episode of Behind the Blue. Thanks for listening to Behind the Blue. Behind the Blue is a joint production of the University of Kentucky and UK Healthcare. For more stories about UK and UK Healthcare, visit uknow.uky.edu.